So I had a moment of sadness today, and while I was processing what I was going to discuss today, I was like, go to the gym, work it out, think about it, process what you're feeling. Not that it was related to the topic at all, really, but it was just to kind of like process what I was experiencing, got some things done. And when I really sat with what I was experiencing, I did get a bit emotional. So this is post crybaby moment, but that was part of the conversation in a sense of I had a moment of vulnerability that I felt was important to share because what may surprise a lot of people, but it doesn't surprise clinicians, is that a lot of people that go into the mental health and healing community have experienced some form of mental health issue or concern, whether depression, anxiety, psychosis, in a spiritual sense that maybe the traditional Christian community doesn't accept or demonizes, religious trauma, abuse. A lot of people navigate to the helping and healing community because they want to understand themselves and they also want to give back and help other people. I'm talking the mental health field, the nursing field, teaching. A lot of those people who tend to be women, statistically you can look around, majority of social workers are white women, and black women follow, of course. And so it's more of a divine feminine masculine trait, and neither are inherently good or bad. This is just saying the feminine traits, masculine traits, we gravitate towards feel and helping fields and wanting to help others. This is more of, I think, of how we see the world. That being said, in the clinical world, we are taught a lot of suppressing of emotions. And this was one of those moments where I processed whether or not to suppress a conversation, to just kind of just dive into it with like statistics and facts and just like experience with the words suppression and compartmentalization. Hello, Healing Fam. Welcome to Healing Not Heal, where we will talk about all things mental health and holistic wellness in a very transparent and culturally competent space. So the reason I bring that up is because a lot of us in the mental health field, of course, come from a very Western lens of clinical psychology, where we talk a lot about ethics, boundaries, rapport building. Now, in different communities, it looks different, right? Working with youth versus working with adults versus working in the prison system versus working in healthcare versus working in a nursing home. It looks different depending upon the environment. And so a lot of the environments that I came from and worked in were very restrictive environments. And so not only was rapport and boundaries and compartmentalizing stressed, it was almost as if you had to lack empathy and mute your emotions and become numb to certain situations, because in a lot of organizations it isn't always ethical as they would like to appear it to be, especially when you are trying to help mass amount of people. It's not equitable, it's not fair. People don't get the same amount of time or the same amount of care. And in a lot of those stressful environments, your most problematic individuals get more time than those that are more passive or quiet or meek or internalized their symptoms. And so it's very easy to get burnt out in those environments, especially like high acuity, where individuals don't go home and you see the intensity and stress of their emotions by having to live in those environments. You are taught a lot of separating how you feel, your own personal value systems and morals about certain things, in order to follow a system of rules that don't necessarily make sense for everybody. And so to me, that's suppressing. And I had to I had convinced myself that a lot of that was compartmentalizing the situation, which to some extent I understand that even in the organization a lot of things are out of their control as well. But to me, it was a lot of suppressing because it's telling me not to empathize with this person's emotions. However, I know in my core that if I were in their shoes, I would be just as distraught, just as upset, especially just knowing the traumatic experiences they've had. And I'm supposed to not feel sadness or grief about that. I'm supposed to compartmentalize my emotions. But in all honesty, you're asking me to disconnect my emotions. And so doing that for a while in a lot of those environments, it taught me to suppress my own emotions about my own personal trauma. And that is where I was recognizing I wasn't able to heal and I had to leave those systems. I've admitted this before. I did experience sexual trauma, and so to go into an environment to work with people who have been offenders of such and who have hurt maybe victims that are similar to myself, I had to compartmentalize, suppress, all of the above, and go to work the next day, because to me it was because of the environment that I worked in. And so I did compartmentalize with the population that I worked with, in that I still treated people with respect. I didn't project my own opinions or like look nasty or mean at anybody. It was just a situation of I didn't acknowledge my own emotions. I didn't try to grieve or heal my own experience. When you are not allowed to experience your emotions in a healthy way and connect with people and connect with your experience, it's going to come up one way and another. It was one of those situations that I had put other people before myself. In my mind, it was like, it's not that bad, it's not that serious. It doesn't stop the world, right? Like, we're all going through something. And so for me, it was just like, put it in the back of your head, still help people. And distract yourself in a sense of that doesn't have to be on the forefront of your mind. But at the same time, I never addressed it. I never allowed myself to be angry. I never allowed myself to be mad and didn't allow myself to feel that. And for me, the reality is I know that if I don't allow myself to grieve and allow myself to be angry, it was going to come out one way or another. So I sit back and I think about how we were trained as a therapist, and I've had several therapists myself, and I think about one of the greatest therapists I've ever had. It was the therapist that I had after my sexual assault who did EMDR with me. And what made it so great wasn't the conversations or the discussions. It was those moments where if I had told her some news, I can't remember what it was. It was something that I had been ruminating on for a while, and I finally did it. And she was just like, I am so proud of you. I am so proud of you. She didn't have to tell me that, right? But it was something that she knew I needed to hear. And I just broke down. And that was a very healing moment for me. And there are some literature that will tell you not to encourage people in that way, because now you're trying to have them externalize their validations through you being proud of them, which I understand the logic of that, but it was what I needed in the moment, right? She knew that my sense of community was very fragile, and so having those words of encouragement didn't break that boundary or that ethical line for us, because she knew clinically it was what I needed. But in different environments, saying things like that, again, may be frowned upon, not heavily, but I know that there is some literature out there that's like, oh no, you want people to be internally validated, internally motivated, and so be careful with the language that you use of being proud of them or you did a good job and things like that. The second moment that we had together is that, again, going through a very emotional moment, she asked for permission to give me a hug. She's like, she was crying herself. She's like, do you mind if I give you a hug? And again, clinically, she is aware of what my needs were. Again, another breakthrough moment for me where I felt like that was one of the biggest transitions outside of Reiki that helped in my healing journey as well, is that connection, that empathy, that rapport. Her seeing me as a person and wanting to show up. It wasn't the clinical intervention. It wasn't the deep breathing. It wasn't even the EMDR at times. It was connecting with me as a person. And so a lot of Western psychology frowns upon that. And I know a lot of clinicians are very fearful about how to walk that line and still show up for people, especially as people who have experienced a lot of emotional trauma in situations as well that have drawn them to the field. You naturally are drawn to the field because you have that empathy, you understand, but you're taught, again, to push those feelings down and have that boundary and have that stoic nature, and not connecting with your client, watching them suffer because there's a part of you that is fearful of what will come up for you if you were to support them in that way. Which is, it compartmentalizing is acknowledging that does trigger me, that does bring up emotions for me, but I still want to be present for this person, and then I will go handle and manage my emotions at another time. But a lot of people are taught to like suppress their emotions, so they won't even push certain topics or issues with clients because they're fearful, or being supportive of their clients because they're fearful of how it's going to show up for them. And so I'm encouraging clinicians to trust your intuition in a sense of ask yourself, why did you go into this field? Because there are a lot of great clinicians, but I think style definitely matters when it comes to that one-to-one connection. If you went into this field because you know you have a high level of empathy and understanding for other people's situation, it is very important to be aware of, again, suppressing versus compartmentalizing your emotions, because I think there's a healthy way to show up with compassion, with affection, with admiration, with motivation, without crossing ethical boundaries. So why do I bring this up now, and why is it important? Because yes, you have Candace, the licensed therapist, and now Candace, the holistic wellness coach. And the difference is that Candace has a license to protect that says that I can only practice under certain evidence-based practices, which I follow those guidelines. I only approach my clients in a clinical sense, in a mental health clinical sense only. In my holistic wellness business, Healing Crown Wellness, I can approach my client from all different aspects of their lives. Now, for me, I am a person that believes mind, body, and spirit goes together. What are your daily activities? What inspires you? What is your spiritual background? Your life goals, and push you in that direction. That is more short-term care. And it's not as if mental health doesn't ask these questions, but again, there's this level of boundaries of self-responsibility. I approach my holistic wellness business in a sense of support and community. I do believe healing does happen in community, and community is more than just an hour a week. And so I know there is not a lot of supportive programs out in the community on an individual basis that help encourage people to the level of frequency that they need that support, and not being inpatient but needing maybe a little bit more encouragement, right? You don't need residential, but you need a little bit more support and reassurance, or a little bit more access to resources or information. You might not need that high level of care, but you just need someone because your community might be limited, or your information might be limited, or your motivation just might be limited, or there are things going on in your daily life that you have not addressed yet. And so we get to process all of that, and it doesn't have to take that 1 hour, here's therapy, bill insurance, and now that's it. Okay, so I wanted to be able to provide something that is more holistic, more well-rounded, more encouraging, more supportive, again, using all of my certifications, all of my skills, all of my experience and my background, especially being trauma-informed, and creating a program that helps women feel more empowered in a transformational empowerment program. So I look forward to sharing more details of that coming forward. Again, I believe the transparency of my experience helps me, again, to connect with people in a sense of, I want you to feel encouraged, right? Because I know it's not easy. I also want you to know that there's not this fallacy that it gets easy and it stays easy. I want clinicians to know that, again, you don't have to act like it stays easy all the time. And I think we are starting to see that in a more transparent and vocal world, that everybody is going through something. But I think the healing part is the transparency and the rapport of knowing that you don't have to do it alone. And so that is why I'm here to encourage and support. I have said this in plenty of the videos. I think everything on the media and in content, and the overstimulation and the overconsumption and the capitalism and everything being so fast-paced, I think it is all by design. And so I just want us to be focused on what is our goals, because I am very confident that whatever those goals are, help transform the lives of other people as well. What are those goals? How can we achieve those missions as a community? How can we collaborate? How can we put you in rooms with other women that can help support your goals and mission? And let's see that through, because I am positive that a lot of the work that we want to do help other people. And that is so much powerful than what we're seeing in the news. It's so much more powerful than what they're trying to feed us and make us believe. Because that learned helplessness, we won't stand for it. We won't. We will decide to do something different. And I want to encourage us to do something different, because I don't want to stay helpless. I don't want to stay helpless, okay? I want to be encouraged. And so what encourages me is encouraging you. All right, Healing Fam, thank you for being on this journey with me. Again, if you want to like, share, subscribe, you can always follow me on all the social media platforms at Healing Crown Wellness. I appreciate you here every Thursday, as well as my sound bath every Sunday, 8 a.m. live now. Again, make sure to follow. Love you, Healing Fam.